What's up? When are you gonna be here?
5 seconds.
Put your pants on! My kids are home.
We're on the second floor.
You hang down, stick the landing.
We're really gonna need a new system to avoid your kids.
Yeah. Or you meet them.
At worst, I'd break an ankle. Stuck it!
I get it. You're meeting my kids.
Ah, boy, here we go.
It's scary.
Scared of kids? I don't even hide when people bring them in here anymore. I mean, I close my door, but that's just because I have a bowl of candy, and it's kind of like, it's my candy.
Hola!
I should have let you. What the fuck?
Don't go loco on me, girl. Mary's back to help.
Excuse me, what?
Oh my God, you have no idea what you're doing at all, do you?
I really don't.
All that matters is I love you and we're in this together.
He's onto us! Kick him in the nuts and run!
What? What the fuck?
Hello and welcome back to Tulpa Time. I'm your host Lyrical, and today we're going to be doing a little bit of an update video. And by we I mean I, because my co-host Longbow is actually currently working on a physical guide right now. And being as how that's the case, for the foreseeable future, I will be the only host of this podcast. So I hope you guys can kind of put up with just me talking to you for a little bit. I will admit it is a bit odd, me sitting in here talking to a microphone, but it's like, hey, I talk to invisible people all the time, right? Anyways, so today, we're going to talk about some fun stuff, mainly having to do with me and my Tulpa, and their personalities and how they are. And I do this because I did get a couple of comments from people in the past asking me about my Tulpa and my co-host about his Tulpa, which I know his Tulpa pretty well. I'll try to do them justice just from what I've gleaned, but only he'd be able to tell you how they actually are on the inside, so to speak. And I'm also going to cover some Tulpa taboos, as it were. Meaning things that are generally frowned upon in the Tulpa community, from what I've gleaned and what I've gathered from the people I've spoken to in my 6 years of doing this. But first off, we're going to start kind of jovial with me introducing my Tulpa to you and me telling you their names and their forms and how they act and their personalities. So I'll go from oldest to youngest. My eldest is Ava L'viyah. Rosa is what I call her for short. She currently takes the form of a unicorn with prosthetic robotic legs that were her choice, not mine. She is aesthetically drawn similar to the My Little Pony show, Friendship is Magic, and she has sort of a combative, stubborn, strong personality. She's got a lot of ambition and a lot of inner strength, and she's the kind of person that you want on your side if you ever get like in a sticky situation or you need someone to stand up for you. Rosa is very dependable, and she's never let me down once whenever I've asked her for any sort of backup or whenever I needed to say something that needs to be said, either to me or to someone I'm talking to. She has no filter, and she will say exactly what she believes that person needs to hear, regardless of how they feel about it. My second eldest is Ava L'viyah, and Ciara takes the form of Midna from The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, her true form, the one where she's in a humanoid body, as in like she stands at about 6 foot tall, and she wears sort of like dark Arabic attire. I'm sure you've seen the character I'm talking about. If you haven't, then look up Twilight Midna on Google, and that's what she looks like. She's had that form for a very, very long time. Ever since, 2013, she's had that form. And she is very regal, very composed, very refined. She's very smooth. She's very calm. You can find your center when you're around her. She loves tea. She loves to recite poetry. She loves to, basically every person that talks to her says that she speaks in a very eloquent, almost poetic manner, just the way she speaks. And she's very good to be around. She sort of has a regal glow about her that just makes you feel like I can trust her and I can depend on her. My middle child is a wild one. His name is Dan, and he is based physically and somewhat personality-wise off of Dan Avadan from the show Game Grumps, or Danny Sexbang from Ninja Sex Party, whichever one you want to say. And I created him whenever I was in a really particularly dark place in my life. I was in a abusive relationship, and I was unable to hang out with any of my actual friends, my IRL friends, so to speak, my bros. I wasn't able to hang out with any of them, and I wanted someone around to cheer me up and kind of bro out with. So I was watching Game Grumps, and I said, Dan seems like he's a lot of fun to hang out with. And I said, you know what? People might think it's weird, but fuck it. I'm going to make a Dan Tulpa. So I made a Dan Tulpa. 4 years later, here he is. He's my man Dan. He sings a lot. He's very artistic. He's calm. He's collected. He's cool. He's fun to be around. He loves to laugh and just have fun, and he's a great guy. And I love having him in my life, and I'm very thankful for him. And probably his most endearing quality is his unrelenting charisma, or should I say more like, how should I put it? It's not ego, it's confidence. He's very confident. And he'll help me be confident in situations where I feel like I can't be confident. My second youngest is Delilah. And Ava L'viyah, if you want to go by her full name. By the way, they gave themselves, everyone except Dan gave themselves the name they have. And they also gave themselves last names. L'viyah is like all their last names. They're almost like a family. But Delilah is currently in the form of a lamia, which is a half snake, half woman being. Upper half woman, bottom half snake, obviously. That would be weird otherwise. It's already weird. I'm not going to lie. It's already weird. But it would be more weird if her upper half was a snake and she just had legs. Could you imagine that? Anyways, so she is a very bubbly, fun person to be around. She's got a great temperament. She's a bit of a troll. She likes to troll. She likes to get people's goat. But she's got a really good heart. And she's recently been through a bit of a emotional and mental transformation, so to speak. She went from way more immature to more like she is now, which she went from completely basically like a teenage girl going through really bad hormones to what she is now, which is sort of like a young woman who's figured her shit out. And she's really fun to be around. She's always good to brighten any room she goes into. And my youngest and final Tulpa, that's right, 5 is it for me. Some people go more, some people go all the way up to 13. I've met people who have 13, but 5 is enough for me. My 5th Tulpa is Ava L'viyah. And Ava is currently in the form of, and this is a form she chose. All my Tulpa chose these forms except Dan. I chose his form and he liked it, so he kept it. But Ava is taking the form of Shakira, the singer. And she's Shakira, but with a slight variation. She's a little taller than Shakira is, because Shakira is only like, I think 4'9", I think. And she's got pink hair instead of Shakira's classic blonde hair. And yes, she does talk like Shakira, and she sings, but her personality is entirely her own. All of my Tulpa's personalities are entirely their own. Even Dan doesn't act exactly, or he acts sometimes kind of like Dan Avadan. It's like if the character Danny Sexbang and Dan Avadan were meshed together into a person, because Dan Avadan and Danny Sexbang are two entirely different people. One's a lot more sweet and calm and collected. The other's a sex demon god. It doesn't make any sense, but that's pretty much what he is. He's a dragon slayer too. But Ava is sweet. She's inquisitive. She's very inquisitive. She's always asking questions. She's always trying to figure out how things work. She's she says she's very innocent, but she's perhaps a little less innocent than she lets the world think. She is determined. She's very determined. once she sets her mind to something or trying to figure something out, and it'll hurt my brain sometimes. Literally, I'll get headaches when she starts to focus on something and she's like, I want to figure this out. There's like no stopping her. She will do it. She's got laser vision, just locked in. She will not stop. But their ages are, I should have told you this as I was listing them off, but Rosa is 6 years old. Ciara is 5. Dan is 3. Delilah is about 2, and Ava's about a year old. So I've had them for a while. I created them a long time, my oldest a long time ago, back in 2012. And late 2011, early 2012. And it's just been an amazing ride. They're all great to be around. And people ask me, they say, what's it like to have multiple Tulpa? Do they fight for your affection? Do you have to cordon off days? Like, okay, Dan, you get Monday. Ciara, you get Wednesday. Ava, you get Tuesday. No, I don't have to do that. Basically, since I have a very vast Wonderland, they get to hang out there all they want. And when they want to hang out with me, I tell them, come on and hang out with me anytime. Well, almost any time. There are times when I need to be alone, but almost any time, my door is open. My mental door is open, so to speak, and you can come hang out with me. And, I'll be more than happy to. So, now that I've got my motley crew covered, I guess I could tell you guys a little bit about my Wonderland. And my Wonderland is a continent. It's about, I wouldn't say it's really a compliment. It's a continent. It's probably about as wide as the Florida Panhandle. It's not really a continent. And so in this continent, I have the city of Clocktown from Majora's Mask. A lot of it's based heavily off of The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask. And that's only because that game, when I first started out making a Wonderland, that game was so heavily ingrained in my mind that I could visualize it very easy. And I said, I'm going to start out making a Wonderland like this, and then maybe change it as I go. And that's what I ended up doing. But I started out by making... basically, I had a very good mental image. You have no idea how much I played Zelda when I was younger, and still as an adult, of Clocktown in my mind. And I take that mental image and I make it more realistic, and I apply like real world graphics to it, in quotation marks there. And I have Clocktown, and then to the south of that, I have the Southern Swamp. And then to the west of that, I have the Great Bay. And then to the to the east, I have Ikana Canyon, and into the north, I have Snowhead. And in between Clocktown and Snowhead, I have this massive forest that I created, and this massive forest has a cabin in it, and that cabin is like the central hub to my Wonderland. The cabin is where I've spent so much of my time. It's a log cabin in the middle of a very densely wooded forest. The seasons can be whatever, depending on what time I feel like making them. Usually I like to settle for autumn, because that's pretty much my favorite time of year. Sometimes I'll make it summer if I feel like having a night fly with a balmy breeze, But this cabin is very cozy, it's very comfy, and it has, as soon as you walk in, to your right, there's a coat rack. There's also a massive couch that has a L shape to it. There's a huge flat screen TV in front of that. To your left, there is a dining room area that has a small table. Directly behind the couch, on the far adjacent wall, is a door that leads to the music studio. And the music studio is where Dan sort of sleeps/spends most of his time. He's got a bed in there. He literally sleeps in there with the instruments. To the left front of the cabin is a big bay window, and in front of that is like a little seating area where you can sit and look out over the front porch. The front porch is covered, by the way, and there is a wooden swing suspended by chains on it. But inside, it's all like very warm feeling. The atmosphere is very warm. It's everything's like rustic looking. The wood's all stained and shellacked, so it's got that earthy, warm, like reddish tint to it. There is a fire pit or fireplace. There's a fireplace, and that's over to the right-hand side of the room as you walk in. And suspended above the living room way up near the ceiling is a bed that can be lowered down on a chain. And you press a button, and this bed lowers down on a chain, and then you can lay on it, and then it'll raise back up to the ceiling, and then there's a big pane of glass in the middle of the ceiling where you can lay down in this nice, big, comfy, soft bed and look up at the stars through this glass ceiling. And it's only not, the entire ceiling's not made of glass, just this section right above the bed. And you can look through this, and you can literally go to sleep underneath the stars, and it's the coolest fucking idea that I ever came up with. And the bathroom has a hot tub and a shower, of course. Why wouldn't it have those things? The backyard is pretty much just forest. Same for the front. There is a small yard that leads out, but at the edge of the yard is literally, it just goes straight into deep forest. And there's a path that goes through it that leads to it. But I mean, there are all the accoutrements you would think there would be in a log cabin. I have a lamp that I really love that's on the right side coffee table to the couch, and it has a lampshade on it that's kind of dark and burgundy, and there are antlers that have been like bolted together that make up the base of the lamp. I love my cabin in my Wonderland. It's where I spend most of my time. It's very cozy. There's a big wooden chair. It's actually, you know, when you think of those videos where the guy's sitting in the chair with a corncob pipe reading a book, that red, like, tacked chair that has the claw feet. Yeah, there's one of those sitting over by the fire, and that's where Ciara likes to spend a lot of her time, just staring at the fire and contemplating things. I've put some more stuff into my Wonderland as of late. I've built on sort of like a Zora's Domain type area, and also a lake akin to Lake Hylia, and I really like that. The aesthetic of the general aesthetic of the Wonderland is sort of like Breath of the Wild's type artistic aesthetic. I really like the way that game looked, so I wanted to give the whole world that feeling. And I just absolutely love it. And even though it is based off Termina, there's no giant moon about to fall and hit the Wonderland in 3 days, so I don't have to worry about that. That's one good thing. So that's basically my Wonderland in a nutshell. It's an amazing place. I don't want to brag, but I did spend a lot of time creating it. Several years it's been in formation now. And I really enjoy spending time there. It's a great place to find yourself. And I often find myself wondering a thing or two about the Tulpa experience and how other people feel about it. And I would like you guys, anyone who's listening to this, to write in the comments about what I'm about to ask you. So the question is, do you guys ever find yourselves doing things in the Wonderland that are completely fantastical that you know you would never do in real life? Or is it just a place where you go to escape? Is it a place where you go and find your zen and it's just chill and calm? Or do you go there to fly and, you know, shoot laser beams out of your hands and go Super Saiyan and blow up a planet? Is it something huge and amazing? Or is it just something that you guys go to and relax? Because I've been to several, like, Discord places. I've been to several Discords, and I've been to several IRCs that involve Tulpa. And I listen to people talking about it, about their experience with their Tulpa and about their Wonderland. And a lot of it just seems, and this is going to sound bad, but a lot of it just seems like they haven't quite grasped the gift that I feel has been given to them. The ability to literally create anything you want in your mind, and it becomes so tangible that you can feel it in a mental space when you get imposed in your Wonderland. And I don't know, I see a lot of it, and I'm just wondering if I'm just assuming that people don't know, or I'm assuming that people don't take advantage of that. So I'd like to know in the comments. Let me know what you guys kind of feel like doing in your Wonderland, or what it's for, or what you guys do there. And if you have anything in particular that's special about your Wonderland that you want to share, you can share that in the comments too. But on to my co-hosts, Tulpa. I'll tell you what I do know about them from the conversations I've had with them and from the little bit of time that I've spent with them. So his eldest is named Vanessa, and she's around 4 or 5 years old. And she takes the form of a pony. She is sort of like a Buddha pony, so to speak. She wears like Buddhist attire, and she's actually studying Buddhism. So, there's that. She is very nice, very kind, and she's been through a lot. She's changed a lot. And his second Tulpa, and I mean, I wish I could tell you more about him, but I would feel like it would be unjust if I told you any more than I already have about them, because I don't know them in the same way he does. I can only give you baseline what I've seen from the outside. She seems like she's really nice, and she seems like she's really sweet, and that she's been through a lot, and she's a great Tulpa. His second Tulpa is named Lammy, and she takes the form of Jammer Lammy from the popular PlayStation 2 game, Jammer Lammy. And she seems like she's really sweet, and she's really kind. She used to be really shy, but she's come more out of her shell, and I think that that's great. And what I've talked to her, I've enjoyed every conversation I've had with her. She seems like a great Tulpa. And now you're probably wondering, how do you guys talk? Well, if you're in a situation with two people that both have Tulpa, you can literally just say what your Tulpa says. Like, for instance, Longbow asks me a question, or asks my Tulpa a question. I just go like this. Like, he says, hey, what did you think about that movie Blade Runner 2049? Or hey, Rosa, what did you think about that movie? Rosa would probably say, well, I didn't really like it that much. It seemed like it was kind of pretentious. Personally, I liked it, but that just seems like something she would say. And, yeah, that's pretty much all I can really tell you about them. I think that's the most justice I could do them from the outside looking in. And, okay, so this next part, we're moving on. Now that I've told you guys a good bit about my Tulpa and my Wonderland, I've spilled my Tulpa guts for you. We're moving on to a little section I call Tulpa Taboos. And these are things that I've heard that have been generally frowned upon in the community in the past. And I think that Tulpamancy is indeed subjective. So what might be wrong for you might not be wrong for them. And what might be right for them might not be right for you. And vice versa ad infinitum. So the first big one I've seen is don't create a Tulpa just for sex. Because yes, Tulpa sex is a thing. People do have sex with their imposed Tulpa. I'm not going to go into the mechanics of how it happens, because I think that you can figure that out in your own way. But people do that. And be it a troll, someone comes into the thread and says, hey, can you fuck it? Can you make this for sex? And people will just say, a lot of people will say, yeah, you can, but it's kind of fucked up if you just do that. And they say, why? It's like, well, imagine if you had been born, if your parents had created you and just to fuck you, like you had no other purpose that you served other than being a human fuck toy. And that's genuinely why I think it's frowned upon, is because it denies them a sense of agency, and you're literally creating a sentient fleshlight. And to me and a lot of people, it isn't so good. But that's, like I said, it's all subjective. I guess what's right is relative. So there's some people who do it and feel no qualms about it. Another Tulpa taboo would be to create a Tulpa based off a character and saying, you are this character. You are this character. That you act exactly like them. You think exactly like them. You are this character. Do not deviate. I'm going to force you to stay this way. And therefore your Tulpa has no sense of individuality. They have no sense of self, really. And a lot of people believe it can lead to an identity crisis. Now, I don't know if that's the case, because I've never seen it happen. But I'm not saying it can't happen. And that's genuinely the reason why it's frowned upon in the Tulpa community. Because people believe that what's the point in making this character from a TV show if, you know, and your Tulpa has no freedom. They have to act as though that character would act. And they're not really a Tulpa. They're not really themselves. They're not another human, another being, another consciousness. They're just a character from a show that you plucked out of the screen and sat beside you and said, act like him or act like her, you know? So a lot of people don't really like that. Another Tulpa taboo is forcing your Tulpa to like or dislike something, or forcing your Tulpa to change. Now, there are going to be times when you have a tulpa where you disagree. And there's going to be times when you don't feel like you get along very well. And there's going to be times when you fight. But taking your tulpa and literally like mentally reprogramming them to be the way you want them to be, a lot of people view that as fundamentally messed up. It's like, once again, it's not only is it removing that tulpa's sense of agency, but it's taking who they are and reworking it to what you want them to be. And once a tulpa is formed and is alive, as in sentient, then they are their own person. The choices they make, the decisions they make, that's entirely up to them. You know, no one can tell them it's right or wrong. Well, they can, but the tulpa doesn't have to listen, right? They're just as much a person as you or me. The only difference is they don't have a physical body. Another tulpa taboo would be believing that your tulpa came from the astral realm, or your tulpa is a demon, or your tulpa is a succubus, or your tulpa is from Cthulhu's back pocket, or something like that. A lot of people think that is crazy, and that's saying something, coming from people who talk to their imaginary friends, right? But it's genuinely seen in the community, generally. I keep saying genuinely, I mean to say generally. It's generally seen in the community as a psychological phenomenon. It is a being you will into existence through your psyche and through splintering part of your consciousness off and creating a being. There are people who believe that they are magical, magic with a K, and that they're demons with an AE, daemons. They are pulled from the astral realm. They're a soul pulled from the astral realm and put into your body as a separate being that you now host. And a lot of people who are in the tulpa community think that is crazy. Now, there are some sites you'll go to where people claim that it's the truth, and if you choose to believe that, that's entirely up to you. I just want you to know, as it is considered pretty much a tulpa taboo from what I've gathered, to believe that they come from the astral realm. Let's see, what do we got here? Another tulpa taboo, I would say, would be to specifically make your tulpa just for the sole purpose of being your companion and no one else's. This falls along with along the lines of them being a sex doll, almost in a way. But some people think that it's, and I say some because like I'm saying, this is just what I've gleaned from, this is all anecdotal, just from people I've talked to, people I've chatted with, people that I've spoken to in real life about tulpa. They generally believe that if a tulpa is formed to be your companion and you make them be your companion and you're possessive over them so that no one else can be around them or be near them, then once again, you are denying that tulpa agency. You are giving them a lot of people say a shitty life by dooming them to only be with you. Now, I say that in the kindest way possible because I know what it's like to be lonely. I know what it's like to hurt. I know what it's like to be beaten down, literally and physically, to the point where you're willing to do anything to get rid of this pain, even if it means you create a being and then deny them the right to speak to anyone else or be with anyone else and make them yours, you know. I've never done it and I never will do it, but if you have done it, I can't say that I blame a lot of people who do this because they're in a state where they feel that desperate, right? And I'm not passing judgment on any of these, by the way. Just going to lay that out there. I'm not passing judgment on any of these things. I'm no better than any other tulpamancer out there. Now, we're going to segue from the tulpa taboos into sort of a next topic, sort of ties into it. I've met a few tulpamancers throughout the years who've had, let's say they've had deep psychological issues before they make a tulpa. Now, I want to say from the kindness of my heart that even if you do have a psychological issue, as long as it's not debilitating to the point where you can't function normally, I say you should still make your tulpa. But if you have a condition that causes you to not be able to function completely, and I don't mean anxiety where you can't talk to people, or you have trouble fitting into social crowds. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a psychiatric disorder that causes you to sometimes be violent, sometimes black out, sometimes, act out and lash out in ways, or maybe even an anger disorder or an eating disorder maybe that causes your hormones to fluctuate wildly. I would say I want you to make a tulpa. I do. I want you to make a tulpa, but I also want you to get help for yourself first. Because a tulpa can only fix so much, and they can only help so much. They are a part of you, right? So if you already have all these problems, you should get help first. And then, after you're in a good place, or not even a good place, just a better place, then focus on creating a tulpa. That's just what I feel I should say. I'm not the one who makes the rules on this stuff. I'm not the one who wrote the book on tulpamancy. It's just how I feel. And it's going to hurt a lot of people to hear, especially the people who have genuine schizophrenia, which tulpa is often confused for, or DID. It's a big meme that tulpamancy is just giving yourself schizophrenia, which, by the way, you can't give yourself schizophrenia. That's not possible. It's a diagnosed condition that usually arises from trauma. Or same for DID. But there's a guy named Ford and Ari. He talks a lot more about that, the psychological aspects of schizophrenia and dissociative disorder on his channel. And I would check it out if I were you. It's Ford and Ari. I love watching his videos. He's a good guy. And I'm just fortunate enough that I am a functional human being. I want to say it. I don't want to say functional and make it sound like it's bad, but I'm genuinely, and I mean that in the right way, genuinely, a very charismatic person to the people around me. I work in a place where I have to talk to hundreds of people a day. I have no problem carrying on conversations with people I've just met. I don't really have an anxiety disorder at all. I'm a normie. By most aspects of the word, I'm a normie. I've got a job. I've had several real girlfriends and a boyfriend. I'm pretty normal in the general sense of the word. I've got IRL friends. I have no problem being in social situations. The channel that I was recommending, Ford and Ari, he goes into more about if you have anxiety and if you have problems with, because I believe he also dealt with a little bit of anxiety in his past. If you have problems talking to people in public and everything like that, he goes a little more into that and the psychological aspects of that. I'm lucky enough where I'm normal, in quotation marks, said the guy with 5 imaginary friends, Shakira being one of them. And that brings us to our final topic of this podcast, which is going to be switching and possession. Now, Ford and Ari have done a massive amount of work on this already on their channel, more than I could ever do in this one podcast. But my main thing I'm going to say is if you are interested in switching and possession, definitely check out their videos. I know Ford and Ari haven't given me any money to plug their channel or anything like that. I'm just doing that because they've done a lot of great work when it comes to switching and possession, and that's more than I could talk about in this video. From what I gleaned and what I've seen, I've never personally tried switching. I've done possession. Possession is where your tulpa takes your body over, but you're sort of watching them do the things. You're kind of like taking a back seat while your tulpa drives the body, so to speak. Okay, possession is just my tulpa is drawing something with my hand while I watch her do it. My hand is not doing it. It's very hard to master. I have barely been able to do it one time. It's very hard. And possession is something that I think may be slightly easier than switching, because switching is I am completely blacking out. I'm in the Wonderland. My mind is completely immersed in my Wonderland, and my tulpa completely takes over my body and does whatever she wants or he wants while I'm chilling in the Wonderland where they normally are. Your tulpa and host switch places. if that makes any sense. That's what I get as the basic gist of them. I'm not a super big expert on it, but what I also can talk about is something that I haven't seen a lot of Tulpamancers talk about, which is called merging. Okay, we're about to open a can of worms here. Buckle in tight, ladies and gentlemen. So, merging. It stands to reason that if a tulpa and host can split from one another to form two separate consciousnesses, then it stands to reason that they would be able to rejoin their consciousnesses, right? Well, what happens when you've created an entirely separate personality and it has its own life, its own fears, its own wants, its own dreams? It's an entirely different being. And you push it back in together and mix it and meld it and join it with your consciousness. What happens then? I'll tell you what happens then. What happens then is another being emerges. I told you it was going to be a bumpy ride. Just bear with me here. Another being emerges. I'm going to do an entire video just on merging and the experience of merging, but I'm going to talk about it a little bit here because I've done it and I am the result of it. Oh, wow. There you go. Now I've done it. So, merging, it's essentially, I'm going to make it as simple as I possibly can describe it because it's really hard to describe. It's like taking a can full of Diet Coke and a can full of Pepsi, right? And you've got a glass sitting in between them, and the glass is your body. Now, the Diet Coke is normally what goes in the glass. That's your consciousness. And the Pepsi is your tulpa. Okay, so right now you're two separate cans of Diet Coke. Two separate cans of cola, right? Now, when you pour these two cans in at the same time into the glass, which is your body, they mix. And what happens is neither of the two that were there are lost, but something new is created out of those two things. A new personality is formed. And this is another Tulpa taboo from what I've gathered. A lot of people in the Tulpa community view this as murder, so to speak, of a Tulpa. A lot of people believe that there is no just cause for a Tulpa and a host to merge consciousnesses again and be back one consciousness, even if it is a new consciousness. I believe that there is justification, and everything has its justifications in this world. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk all about that in another episode. I just wanted to kind of tease you guys with that. Merging is insane. It's not something that I recommend a lot of people do. But in certain situations, it could be an answer to a very, very serious problem. And I'm going to work out an entire video on it, and I'll just title it Merging, and we'll talk all about merging. So, as far as that goes, that's going to be the episode for today. Since I'm hosting this by myself now, and I don't have to work around another person's schedule, I will be posting more regularly, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope you enjoyed hearing a little bit about my Tulpa and my Wonderland and all the wonderful things in it. And I hope you enjoyed my little bit of rambling there about Tulpa Taboos. And I will see you guys in the next episode where we'll talk a little bit more about merging and the ramifications of such, life before and after it. And I hope you guys enjoy it. And I will see you next time. This has been Tulpa Time, and I love you guys. I'm out.